Let's do this again, guys. Jan's Opening Clinic, Season 21, Episode 1. Here we go. I have received a fresh... What's the term for questions? A fresh murder of questions? A fresh crop of questions? Flock of questions? Bunch of questions. On the Chess24 website by Chess24 premium users. And I shall do my very best to answer all of them. So... Actually, if you still have a question, it might not be too late. I'm not sure when the floor will be closed for questions. You might want to check out the chess24.com news site, and maybe you still have time to get your question in there. Without further ado, let's jump to question number 1 by none other than Mr. Fravatel. He says, "Dear Jan, erstens," he likes to, mix in some German words, as we all do. Dear Jan, erstens, keep up the excellent work. Chess24 makes chess even more enjoyable. Secondly, thanks for showing me not to hang anything in bullet again. Yeah, I can just tell you, don't hang stuff in bullet. Then I don't have to show you repeatedly. But thank you, Frautel, appreciate it. So let's get to his question. This year in the regular league, what's the regular league? I got this anti-Sicilian twice. 1 e4, c5, knight f3, d6, 3 c3, knight f6, 4 h3, cunning. Knight to c6, 5 bishop to d3, and although it never scared me, it kind of annoyed me. Oof. Sometimes being annoyed is worse than being scared, isn't it? In the first game, I played 4g6. So technically, it wasn't 4 knight c6. I played 4g6, bishop d3, bishop g7, castles, castles, bishop c2, knight c6, d4, e5, dc, dc, to get some sort of Spanish structure. But it felt like white got what he wanted, and I was lucky that he dodged the queen trade. Queen d8, rook d8, bishop e3, b6, knight b2, bishop a6, rook d1, bishop d3. Takes, takes, and king f1, although it looks equal. I think Fravatel, he's doing and writing what I do when I'm speaking. He's starting a sentence, and then he's changing his mind mid-sentence. I was lucky he didn't do that. Even though, actually, it looks equal. I hear you. So anyway, the second time, I followed Cotroni's recommendation. I played 4 knight c6, bishop d3, d5, e5, knight e7, bishop b5, e6, castles, bishop e7, d4, queen b6, a6 was played by Grishuk, bishop a4, short castles, rook e1, f6, ef, knight f6. And now my opponent played a novelty. They play novelties in such positions. Boom! Bishop takes c6, which did not look that scary. But after b takes c6, queen c2, I had nightmares about ending while you were being awake, or did you fall asleep during the game and then had nightmares? I had nightmares about ending up like Salve against Nimzowitsch. Never heard of that game. And I did not know quite how to continue, lacking experience with French structures from the black side. So, long story short, ooh, there's a question. What would you recommend here for black? Probably both lines are fine. Let me rephrase. With which choice would you make white's life a little harder? Vielen Dank im Voraus, which means pretty much thanks in advance. So yeah, this line is not good for white, not surprisingly. c3, knight f6, h3. Of course, the cunning trap is that knight takes e4 is met by queen a4 check, picking up the knight because of the double attack. Even though h3 makes it a bit obvious, I think better practical chances are offered by bishop e2. Still, going for the same idea. Anyway, h3, the best move is knight to c6, bishop to d3, and d5, as Fravatel pointed out, is a very direct way to try to punish white's play. Which looks a little artificial, no? h3, and then put the bishop here. It's one of these, yeah. One of these lines where white really is trying to be worse very quickly. So d5, e5, knight to d7, attacking the pawn. e6 doesn't work, as we know, or I'm not sure if we know. I'm not sure if we need to know, but it doesn't work. fe, knight g5, knight f6, and this is, yeah, stuff from my youth. Where, not surprisingly, white, having mainly moved the knight and the queen, and the bishop, which no longer lives, is not in great shape after b6, intending bishop a6. So e6 doesn't really work. Instead, as fravatel mentioned, bishop b5 is the move, and here fravatel was talking about e6, which I don't really understand. Seems to give white time to, you know, go castles on d4, especially e6 followed by bishop e7. So my question is, why not start with queen b6? And my next question is, why would anybody want to play this position as white? After bishop to a4, which looks logical, c4 seems strong, preparing knight to c5. When I've seen there are some games, like someone played, was it Bachmann? I think Bachmann played b4 recently, trying to stop knight c5. But after a5, a3, queen c7, my computer is already saying black is better. Not too surprisingly. There's all kinds of threats. A, b followed by b5. This pawn is sort of weak. I sort of overuse sort of. But yeah, what can I say? It's a bad line for white. I guess better than b4 as castles. And now black can take time out with e6 if he so chooses. But in general, it's just not a great position, even knight c5 directly. Not a fan. So I would probably, yeah, go for this, play e6 here. And it doesn't seem to me like white is in time to get this sort of French structure that he was gunning for. Therefore, yeah, I'd prefer black here. I don't think white should play like this. My computer gives bishop takes c6 as the best move, but after queen takes c6. Black has the two bishops. This bishop will have a decent home on a6. So, and the quote-unquote good bishop for white is gone. That's normally destined to give mate on this diagonal. So, yeah, what can I say? It's a bad line for white. And fravatel should not have too many nightmares about it. Or, yeah, he wasn't scared, but he was annoyed. I'm not sure. This is normally one of the rare occasions to be happy with black after a couple moves, I think. So yeah, not a great line. Bishop e2 is a bad move here. When, yeah, black has to decide what he wants to do. And I recently played g6, but there are other options in this position as well. Bishop d7, knight d7, whatnot. But h3 followed by bishop d3. I'm not a true believer. And yeah, I like the line I gave. Which is why I gave it here, 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 and queen b6 directly. All right, thanks for the question, fravatel. That one, I doubt you'll meet it very often. Might have just have been a freak occurrence that you heard it twice. It's not a good line. Nihalsarin, wow, the chess prodigy, 14-year-old super strong international master with I think 2 GM norms, or does he have 3? Rated way above 2550 already, after I think just turning 14. And he's saying what I really need to know in order to make the next leap. First of all, he's saying, hi Jan, keep up your great work on Chess24. Thank you, thank you. What do you think is the most testing setup for white against the QGA? Thanks a lot. Now, I do speak that language. QGA means Queen's Gambit Accepted. We had the recent incident, even though it might have been fake, where someone caught their boyfriend writing about kill the key ID, and they got very scared. But turns out they were talking about the King's Indian defense. So if someone is talking about the QGA, then they're talking about the Queen's Gambit Accepted, the position after 1 d4, d5, 2 c4, d takes c4. In general, I find such questions hard to answer. The QGA, the Queen's Gambit Accepted, is a very playable opening. It's been played by Sergei Karjakin plenty and recently has been championed by Fabiano Caruana. And if there was like one line that was very testing against these things, everybody would do it, and then probably people would stop doing it, because if there was one way that was very testing and that posed objective problems, it would not be a mainstream opening. So it's hard to give definite answers to these things, which is my way of saying, I don't know. I don't have a repertoire against the Queen's Gambit Accepted, but we can, you know, discuss the topic. After d takes c4, my gut feeling has always been that the most testing move, or the most principal move, has to be 3e4, occupying the center, making sure we get the pawn back. When black has a couple choices, but really at the highest level, recently it's been knight to f6 that has established itself as the main line. I don't think e5 has been refuted, but after knight f3, ed, bishop c4, they've been struggling a little bit, and after bishop b4 check here, knight bd2, well, I don't know the theory in detail. I have a feeling that white should have some chances. I'm sure you really want my feeling, not my computer evaluations. So e4, knight f6 is what Caruana's been doing. And then e5, knight d5, bishop takes c4. This is a weird position. White has the space advantage, but of course black has nice control over the light squares in and around the center. So it's one of those that's tough to evaluate. But my hunch is that this is the battleground where currently the future of the QGA is most at stake. Bishop d3, knight c6, knight e2, this is the line they play. Caruana goes bishop g4 here. There are other moves, but it seems like white has been dealing okay with those. So bishop g4. Here, yeah, Caruana has been defending this position. What was it? f3, bishop h5, bishop e4, e6, castles, bishop g6. There's a bunch of Grishu Caruana games, for example, which looks slightly better for white. The engine gives a little plus. But it's very, very hard to break down, to break. So, not sure. And the other attempt after bishop to g4 is this line that Wojtaszek has been playing, or others as well. But whenever Wojtaszek does something, I've learned that it makes sense to pay a lot of attention. He's sort of good in openings, which is not to go for the includes f3, but immediately play bishop to e3. Once again, black faces a choice, but the trendy line is something like queen to d7, knight bc3, long castles, and the play becomes extremely sharp. Knight takes e5 is a threat, but white can do all these funky moves like a4, for example, in order to mate knight takes e5 with bishop to b5. And I don't know, what black is fighting for survival here. He might survive, but it's not a lot of fun. DE, how does this go? Takes, CB, AB, king b8. And people who were playing e6 here. My computer says knight dc3 is also interesting. So these lines are hanging by a thread for black, and it feels like black's under some pressure here. Wojtaszek, instead of a4, he played short castles, also very interesting. Knight takes e5, bishop b5, knight to c6, and rook c1. This is Wojtaszek Lasniczka. These positions, yeah, currently strike me as a very testing battleground for black. Now the thing is, one doesn't always expect the Queen's Gambit accepted, or one doesn't always feel like playing aggressive, risky stuff like that. Therefore, there's e4. The problem from the white point of view, especially for the lazy white player like yours truly is, you constantly need to know a lot of theory and carry it around with you. I've mentioned that e5 and knight f6 are the main moves, but there is c5, there is d5. After e5, knight f3, there's 18,000 sublines here. You can start with bishop b4 check, when probably knight c3 is the most testing, or after ed, bishop c4. There's knight c6, there's bishop b4 check, there's whatever. I guess it's those two really. So there's a lot of stuff here. And after e4, knight f6, there is also a big body of theory. Therefore, it's not always practical to go for this 3e4 every game. Then there's the additional problem for people like me who like to start their games with one knight f3. That after d5, d4, knight f6, c4, d takes c4, e4 really is no longer an option. So often, by move order issues, you stumble into this position, which in the pure move order, I guess you most typically would get after d4, d5, c4, dc. And nowadays, some people like starting with e3 here, because I feel they're less afraid of the position after e5, bishop takes c4, which seems to give white good chances, than of the position after knight f3, a6, which is a cunning little sideline, e3, b5, that, as far as I know, has never been refuted. So you often stumble into this position, one move order or another, bishop c4, c5, castles, a6. And here, this is one of those where it's hard to say which move is the most testing. I believe objectively, black should be able to parry all of white's attempts. And I've been getting excited about different moves over the years. Like recently, I got excited about this queen e2, after which Giri won a nice game against Elyanov, b5, bishop d3, hoping for bishop b7, dc, bishop c5, bishop b5, cheapos. But then I didn't see what to do after bishop d3 in this position, after cd. One can obviously continue to analyze all these things, rook d1 or a4 or whatever, but it seemed to me like black was alright. Then, for a brief period of time, I was excited about this b3 move, intending to play very quietly. Bishop b2, bishop back to e2, cd, knight d4. Then Carlsen put some pressure on Caruana by playing bishop e2, which looks insane, but it's actually a very tricky move. This bishop on c4 has nothing to do, and it wants to reroute to a better diagonal. ASAP. So I got interested in that, and so on and so forth. What I'm trying to say is, I think none of the forcing lines here put black under that much pressure, but there is plenty of options for white to circle around and ask some fresh questions every game. The one line that will always be there, and has always been there, is the move d takes c5 here, leading to these endgames which black should hold, but white is pressing a little bit. Like Caruana normally plays bishop c5, queen d8, king d8, and here white really has a choice. Often they start with bishop to e2. Once again, the bishop has nothing to do on c4, so this is the move you always want to play. And then after king e7, one can do it different ways. The typical setup is b3, bishop b2, knight bd2. This knight often goes to d3 via e1 or e5. The other knight finds a nice square on c4, and one is trying to embarrass the black pieces a little bit here. There's, yeah, as mentioned, many different ways to put some pressure. Starting with knight e5 is very interesting, intending to go, let's say, knight bd7, knight d3. This is a recent game, right? Maybe so against Caruana. All these things, nothing crushing, but always somewhat awkward to play for black. And that's, for me, would be reason enough not to be a regular Queen's Gambit accepted player, that you always have to defend these slightly worse endgames if white chooses to do so, and it's nothing I would fancy after 7 moves. So, to answer the question, I think it's a sound opening. The most testing to question the soundness, in my opinion, is this line. Knight b6, bishop d3, knight c6, knight e2, bishop g4. Now either f3, or even more critical, this move bishop e3. While to make black's life a bit miserable, long term, I like going for whatever move order we get. This position, and now either play some random move like bishop e2 or b3 or whatever. Or just go for the landing after d6, c5, if you want to torture them for free. So that's my opinions on the Queen's Gambit accepted. As mentioned, I don't have a repertoire. I think it's a sound opening, but I also was never very tempted to go there with black. Moving on, thanks for the question, Mr. Sarin. Good luck with that Grandmaster title. Nicholas Kung, number 5. He's saying, hey Jan, thank you. Oh no, he's saying thanks. Thanks for your new video series that I'm sure will help me a lot in my practice. Glad to hear that. In case you don't know what he's talking about, I recently released a video series completing our black repertoire against the close games. This one is dealing with the likes of one knight f3, one c4, and one g3. So check it out on chess24.com if you haven't yet. Thanks for your new video series that I'm sure will help me a lot in my practice. I'm curious, however, what do you think of the following sideline against the Kia? We have another 3-letter. I should know that. Abbreviation, what's it called? I don't know stuff. Played several times by Aronian. Knight f3, d5, g3, knight f6, bishop g2, e6, castles, bishop e7, d3, castles, knight bd2, knight c6, with the idea e4, de, de, e5. It seems attractive to take white out of their autopilot, set up right away like this. What are your thoughts? Let's put it on le board d'échecs. Knight f3, d5, g3, knight f6, bishop g2, e6, castles, bishop e7, d3, castles, knight bd2. Now in my new video series that Nicholas Kung was mentioning, I recommended the move c5 and I'm very happy with the line I gave there, so I haven't changed my opinion on that, I believe. What I gave there is better than well, I'm happier with it. I guess in the grand scheme of things, both moves lead to equal positions. But I'm much happier with playing c5, knight c6 and the concept I gave in my video series. While after knight c6, an Aronian favorite, Nicholas Kung only mentioned e4, de, de, e5, which still I wouldn't be too excited about, but I understand that, of course. Black is fairly close to equality here. White can play all kinds of moves, b3, intending bishop b2, knight c4 directly, or yeah, c3, where we have sort of a Pierz where white is 2 tempi up. But hard to say that white is really pushing here, especially since there's queen to d3. So what I dislike more about this is the option for white to change gears here and play d3 to d4, pronouncing that this knight on c6 might look a little stupid blocking its own c-pawn. There have been games in Aronjan's practice against this as well. I think once he played b6, well, it was a b3, bishop b7, bishop b2, knight a5, clearing the way, which is certainly playable. Knight e5, c5. This is, I guess, the game. Is this rapport against Aronjan? dc5. Which, yeah, maybe white has some chances here. And then later Aronjan went for knight to e4, tending to play with f5 against Kramnik, c3, f5, knight to e1, which, yeah, according to the computer is quite playable as well. But it's one of those positions that I typically dislike because we've weakened our king by pushing our f-pawn up the board. I think in the game knight d3 was played. And yeah, Levon suffered a little bit, even though I'm sure these positions can be held with powerful computers. But yeah, to my mind, I don't see that much upside in knight to c6. And as I mentioned, I'm very happy letting white play their standard plan here and doing my standard plan against it. So, not a big fan of the move knight c6, but of course, it's not losing. It's very playable. I would, however, want to have a plan that I'm comfortable with after d3 to d4 if I were to play that move. I think c5 is just, yeah. I prefer it, what can I say? Thanks for the question, Nicolas Kung, number 5. Egaustad, he's saying, the video series you made on the Italian was brilliant, thank you so much. But I'm not sure you covered the move order Vasila Graf played against Navarra recently. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, castles, knight f6, d3 castles, rook e1. I'm pretty sure I covered it, so it's opinion versus opinion. We will never find out the truth, because I'm too lazy to go look it up. And you didn't find it. Therefore, there is absolutely no way to solve this Mexican standoff. But I did cover it. Anyway, is this a way for white to try to avoid the d5 break that black often wants to play? What would you suggest as a promising continuation for black here? Keep up the excellent work. Thank you, Egaustad. All right, let's put it on our virtual board. The Italian, bishop c4, bishop c5, castles, knight f6, d3, short castles, and the move rook to e1. In general, it is unpleasant for black if he wants to play like me and go d5 everywhere when white delays c3, because c3, d5 is really what we want. But after rook e1, there is a very direct and promising solution, which, as I mentioned, I did mention in my video series, but I'll mention again. You go knight to g4, take the pawn. Now, rook f1 is not very inspiring, since your last move was rook f1 to e1, so rook e2 has to be the idea. And now we play king to h8. I'd be more proud of this if it wasn't played in a game. What is it? So against Giri. So it's really not news. And it's also mentioned in my video series. But this is fine for black. King h8. The point is after h3. We do not retreat, but we go for the very aggressive pawn to f5. That's the reason why we played king to h8. So the king is not in check. And this works for black. What can I say? hg, fg is bad for white. Knight g5, g3. And you can see but a little engine bar. Ooh, oh. Oh. It's not happy. No, this is bad for white. So white can't take the piece. Instead, what they should do is something like knight to c3. And now I can't remember what I gave or what they played. But in general, the knight can retreat. EF would be well met by d5. I think, what was the game? Something like bishop to g5 maybe, d6. I'm not sure this was the game, but black is fine now that he's manufactured this f5. I know I said, answering the last question, I don't like weakening our king's position with f5. Here it's sort of different. Here it's activating our dudes. And I very much like this idea. Knight g4, rook e2, king h8. To meet h3 with f5. So I hope that helps you with an active reply to the move order recently used by MVL against Navarra, was that? Mr. Egaustad. It's also in my videos. That brings us to the next question by a gentleman called Golfballbefreiungsarmee. Golfball Liberation Army? We've speculated about the meaning of that username in a German show. I still don't know. Anyway, he's telling me, "Hi Jan, thank you for your great content and entertainment on Chess24. Thank you so much. I watched every Banter Blitz and opening clinic since Chess24 has been online. I'm very sorry to hear that, Golfballbefreiungsarmee. Imagine how many episodes of Terrace House you could have watched in that time. The answer is all of them, multiple times. My opening question is how to crack the following endgame. e4, e6, d4, d5, knight c3, knight f6, e5, knight fd7, f4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop e3, cd, knight d4, bishop c5, queen d2, knight d4, bishop d4, queen d4, queen b6. So-called vacuum cleaner variation, because pieces disappear from the board. I tried all moves with the computer. Queen d2, long castles, knight b5, queen b6, 13 a4, 13 knight b5. In most of the lines, the computer is very happy to give a slight advantage, but after long study of every move, I think the computer underestimates the drawing potential from black. Is there a concrete line which gives white a big advantage? And what is the plan in your given line? Ooh, he's using the P word, plan. I don't know plans, I make moves. How to proceed from there? Thank you. I don't really know. The usual disclaimer at these moments. I'm not a 1e4 player and I'm not a French player, so I don't really know stuff there. But I'm still opinionated. And even though I'm not sure if this line that Golfballbefreiungsarmee is mentioning is losing, it strikes me as a very strange practical choice for black. Because what are you hoping for? So it's all this stuff. Bishop c5, how does this go? Queen d2, now you take. Queen b6. First of all, are we sure? I looked at the statistics and white does extremely well with all the moves, which is normally already a very bad sign. For a line, white scores over 60% with queen takes b6, over 60% with the direct knight b5, with long castles, and over 70% with the move queen to d2. Which, in a way, if we want to punish black for their cowardly play, trying to exchange a lot of pieces directly, queen to d2 fits the bill the most nicely. I'm not sure it's winning, because, yeah, my computer is also giving zeros, even though I'm not sure this is the end of the story. This looks insanely dangerous for black. But, yeah, I have to admit, I didn't see a win here, either rook to c1 or rook to d1. The moves given by the computer. When it does seem like black is barely surviving, even though barely surviving once again into unpleasant endgames, like one line that my computer gave was something like this. c3, bishop a6, takes, c4, with this powerhouse of a knight restricting the black rooks. The king in the center, this is still mad dangerous. But yeah, queen a5, takes. And it's still suffering for black. He's not out of the woods. Once again, because this knight is a monster. Short castles. But he might survive. Also cd, there's f6 instead of ed. So all of these lines are already hanging by a thread from the black point of view. And I would probably try to go here. Even though I can't do magic. If the computer says it's 0-0, it's 0-0. Yeah, you can also go deeper with rook d1 instead of rook c1. But this looks extremely hard to play for black in and over the board game. Then, if you're a skilled endgame player, I know, these positions, white has to be somewhat better, no? What happened to good knight, bad bishop? I understand. A computer will hold these. They're probably not objectively lost. But it's a thankless defense out of the opening. At least to my mind. I would never ever play something like this with black. And with white, I would feel this is a very acceptable outcome of that opening. But as mentioned, I struggle with plans because I'm too much of a move-by-move player. I could give speeches about, yeah, you go h4, h5, and then you swing the rook around, and you, whatever, create a weakness on g7, and then open second front on the queen side, blah, 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 and then with the will time c4, you overstretch black's defenses. But then they play h4, f6, and all of a sudden, it's very much a move-by-move game again. What happens after ef, gf, rook h3? So that's why I really, really struggle with general plans. Plans. It's not plants versus zombies. It's a different thing. And yeah, giving these speeches. I don't know. White is better, as we can see by looking at the pieces. How much it is, I find hard to say. If I was playing white, because I'm not a big endgame lover, I would probably try to, make something happen here. Even though, I have to admit, my computer gave zeros, so it might not be there. And objectively, the best might be to play knight to b5. Yeah, I'm repeating myself here. It's probably not losing. Probably you can't defeat a computer here. Therefore, I understand where Golfballbefreiungsarmee is coming from. That the engine goes down in all of the lines. That's sort of the nature of chess in a main opening. The game will probably end in a draw. But practically, this is a horrible line for black, and you can choose whatever, depending on your tastes. Knight to b5, or queen takes b6, with a better endgame, or queen d2, when black has to fight for survival, with the queens on the board. Both look very, very unappealing for black to me. And yeah, I wouldn't expect to face this line very often, because it's just so thankless. Anyway, thanks for the question, Golfballbefreiungsarmee. Sorry I don't have a refutation. Probably there is none. ChuckPhil is saying, "Hi Jan, I have a question about the following rarely occurring line in the English. The position after c4, e5, g3, knight f6, bishop g2, d5, cd, knight d5, knight c3, knight b6, e3, knight c6, knight g2, bishop e7, castles, castles, f4. Seems a bit annoying for black." There's that word again, annoying. It's not scary, that's annoying. Can you tell me how I should react with black and what the typical plans in this position are? Please stop using the P word. It tilts me instantly to read what are the plans in any position. Thanks in advance and keep up the great work. This is just me asking for a favor. I'm not saying it's not a legit question to ask for plans. It's just, I don't know them. I never know any plans. I don't have a 5-year plan even. So let's put the line you mentioned on the board. Because in spite of my planlessness, I do have moves. e3, this is a rare sideline, and I guess for a reason. So knight c6, knight ge2. First of all, you've given bishop e7, castles, castles here, then f4. But if white commits to e3 and knight ge2, this might be as good a time as we'll ever get to push our h-pawn up the board. And I believe this is the move that top players play when faced with this position. I forgot who it was. I think there's an MVL and maybe Nakamura game here with h5. This looks extremely tempting. Just want to go h4. If white goes h4, this bishop will very happily occupy the g4 square. White is very ill-equipped to deal with this. No, f4 really is out of the question for good. So h4 is not great. If white castles into it, of course we'll gladly checkmate him by pushing our pawn further. If white goes f4 like in the line you mentioned, we still go h4, fe, knight e5 with a messy position where it seems like black is doing fairly well once again. So that leaves us with, I don't know, h3. I think someone played h3. This can lead to very off the beaten track positions as well, after stuff like this. But once again, I like black's chances here. This is, I think, the first line of my compy. And this guy just looks so vulnerable, does he not? DE queen f3. Oof. So I would go h5, try to punish white for their indiscretions of going e3, followed by knight g2 so early. As for the line you gave, knight g2, bishop e7, castles, castles, f4. Yeah, I agree. This looks somewhat annoying because I'm always worried that at some point down the stretch, white will just have a perfect pawn center and all that good stuff. I switched on the computer. The computer says bishop f5 is a strong move here, still giving 0-0. So that would be my plan. Put the bishop here, and then put it here, and then claim 0-0-0 because of powerful bishop on d3. The line continues a bit, e6, fe, and so on and so forth. But it does seem to be playable for black. The computer also says f6 is 0-0-0, and I guess the plan is to recapture on e5 with a pawn. But I like it less, because I'm also always scared about this long-term checkmatery. Even though it might not be good, it's something I normally prefer not to allow. So, I'd go h5 here. And I think so should you, if you ever face this very rare sideline. The plan is to push the pawn to h4. Thanks for asking, and sorry for my whining about the P word. Best of luck, ChuckPhil. International Master, TheRealSlimChuckNorris is saying, "Hi there, Jan. Congratulations, your series are great as always. Thank you. I really liked your setup against the KIA, the King's Indian attack. And I have a small question. Oh, earlier, who was it? Egaustad says, I don't like your setup. Can't I play live on setup? But the real Slim Chuck Norris seems on board with it. He's saying after the normal moves in the following position, in this series you considered h4 instead of bishop h4 as showed in the diagram. After the normal looking move queen c7, white has knight e3. After black has to make something to prevent knight takes d5 and doesn't have the option of the ideal setup with queen to d8. What do you suggest? Simply queen b6 instead of queen c7, knight b6 covering d5 and planning to go rook f8, queen d8. Thanks, have a good one. Yeah, he answered his own question. I would suggest queen to b6, but I didn't cover that in the series, so it's a very good point. And let's briefly have a look at it. Here we go, yo. Knight f3, d5, g3, knight to f6, bishop g2, e6, castles, bishop e7, d3, short castles, knight b2, pawn to c5, e4, knight to c6, let's say rook to e1, pawn to b5, e5, knight d7, knight to f1, bishop to b7. And yeah, here, the plan I gave was h4, queen c7, bishop f4, rook fc8, and then after knight e3, threatening knight takes d5, we go back to d8, and I like black setup. For details, check out the series. But the real Slim Chuck Norris, he's pointing out that if white starts with bishop f4, then after queen c7, knight e3, we're not on time to organize like this with rook fc8 and queen d8, because here after rook fc8 there's this standard trick, knight d5, e6, which is best avoided. Therefore, yeah, it's a valid question. I've thought about this a bit. I believe there's absolutely no downside to just going queen b6 here, using the same idea to play rook fc8, clear the way for the rook, and then, if needed, return with the queen to d8. And yeah, I tried some things here. I can't really see any drawback. The queen is as well placed on b6 as it is on c7. Like, let's say h4, rook fc8. And the usual principles, h5, we go h6. I tried some nonsense here, knight to g5, h6, and there doesn't seem to be anything. Well, if black needs it, the queen is now ready to drop back. And once again, the black defenses on the king side are solid, so he can slowly start grabbing space on the queen side. Rolling. If knight e3 here, rook fc8 once again. Seems very reasonable, even though we could also think about being more greedy and going d4, hoping for knight g4, h5, which seems to trap the knight. I don't know why, it's not very relevant. I looked at stuff like this, but black is better, so not really an option for white. Therefore, the best white seems to have after queen b6 is to go h4, when after rook fc8. We're back in our line, and yeah, I can't really spot any downside to this queen b6 move. Still, it's a valid point that if white goes bishop f4 instead of h4, we slightly have to change our MO and not go queen c7, but queen b6 in this move order. There's also the other move what I gave in the video series, queen to c7, when typically if this happens, white goes queen e2, b5, knight f1, bishop b7. Here, white wouldn't be in time because he already had to play queen e2, so after bishop f4, once again, we can do this. And this. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out and for answering your own question, the real slim Chuck Norris. Won't refute the line, but yeah, it's a good point. Who do we have next? PaulPetrovitj, who is telling me, "Hi Jan, my question concerns the French defense. After e4, e6, d4, d5, knight c3, knight f6, why is it that the elite today almost invariably play 4 e5 and not 4 bishop g5? Is it d e4 what they want to avoid, or possibly 4 bishop b4? After bishop e7, e5, knight ft7, white has the choice of the classical bishop takes e7 or the sharp but promising 6h4, the Ayechin Shatar. Are these possibilities really considered less promising than the 4 e5 line? So much so that the latter line seems to have total domination whenever black plays the 3 knight f6 French. All the best and keep up the good work, Paul P." It's a question that we've gotten in previous opening clinics as well. And yeah, my opinion is still the same. It used to be that it's mainly a matter of being practical. The thing is, if you play bishop g5 here, you have to face around 5 very, very different systems. And black only has to specialize in one. So it's not a great practical choice compared to e5, when after knight ft7 you probably play f4. Black still has a broad choice, but still you've limited the playing field a lot more, even if you play, I don't know, knight e2 here or whatever you want. But normally nowadays they play e5 followed by f4. So I guess that is a big reason. I guess, but that's more of a guess really, that white players also feel at the highest level that the extra space here is important and that white has good chances for an advantage. But that one I'm less certain about because I haven't spent a lot of time. But yeah, to go into a bit of detail after bishop g5 here, the problem is that none of black's systems is bad as far as I know. The biggest drawback, I would guess, is d takes e4, knight takes e4, and now this knight bd7 seems to be a rocky, solid system. It's sort of an improved Rubinstein where white has committed to the move bishop to g5. And I haven't seen very much here. I think I was asked about this for white in a recent clinic and I gave this as the best chance. But it's not exactly winning. So that's a line. Then there's also bishop to e7 here, which might look similar, but it actually does lead to different positions because after bishop f6, there's both bishop f6, very solid, and gf6, much sharper, tending to go after knight f3, b6, or a6 is old Morozevich system. So that leads to, once again, very, very strategically complex, very different positions that you have to be aware of. Then, instead of d takes e4, there is bishop b4, which I'm not an expert on, e5, h6, and they mainly go bishop c1 nowadays, I feel like. Even though bishop h4 has also popped up in a game or two. This kind of stuff. And there is bishop e7, which yes. What PaulPetrovitj is hoping for, because he likes the Ayechin Shatar here, which I'm not a specialist of. What do they do nowadays? They go h6, like castle? I don't know, but yeah, I'm with you. I think if white could get this position, or the one after bishop takes e7, they would play bishop g5 more often. But at the highest level, my hunch is that people just feel this is too solid for black, and they don't want to give him such an quote-unquote easy way to play. Even though that could always change, and I'm not sure if the last word has been spoken here. We had a game recently, right? Aronian against Kramnik, for example. So it's not like bishop g5 is never played anymore. But yeah, I do think that limiting the playing field and therefore the amount of surprises you can run into when you face the French, which at the highest level you also don't face all that often, especially this position, and not the Rubinstein French. Then yeah, people just feel like, okay, I'm not going to work 1,000 hours trying to find ideas after bishop g5, d, e, bishop e7, knight b7, bishop g5, bishop b4, and bishop g5, bishop e7. But I'm going to focus on this, which might only be 100 hours. or whatever, I don't know how long people work. So yeah, that's my reasoning, but I do lack expertise, except for the fact that I feel like this system is very, very solid. Tough nut to crack for white players, I would guess. So best of luck, PaulPetrovitj, whichever way you choose to go against the French, e5 or bishop g5. It's not that, so by all means, try to bring it back. Who's next? We have Mr. RdeBorn. Not reborn, but RdeBorn? Already born? What's RDE? RdeBorn? And he's saying, "Hi Jan, my compliments on your anti-d4 video repertoire, with which I'm gradually replacing the Leningrad Dutch nonsense. His words, not mine. I settled on when I returned to the game. Thank you. In particular, I've enjoyed the active response to the London system and the stress and upset this causes to London aficionados desperate to avoid theory. I like to hear that. I had a couple of specific move order questions. A. Against the d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, bishop f4 move order in the London, is there anything particular one should know or can exploit? I presume we just have to be ready to transpose to something if white plays 3c4 with uncharacteristic courage. Yeah, like the London shouldn't be, or how to meet the London shouldn't be the backbone of your repertoire. You more build your reply to the London around your repertoire. So in my video series, after d5, c4, e6, after knight f3, I want to go d5 because I'm comfortable playing c4, e6 and then dealing with the Catalan or 3 knight c3. But that's what you build your repertoire around, not your reply to the London system, because there's always going to be something against the London. So if you were more of a Queen's Indian player, then you probably wouldn't go d5, but you would play e6 here. After which bishop f4 gains in strength, but you can still do whatever, d5, c5. Anyway, so other than that, no, I think I covered it in my video series as well. d5, bishop f4, c5, e3, knight c6 typically transposes to London lines after knight b2 or c3. So there's nothing particular to worry about. Question B by RdeBorn is, how would you look to answer an early bishop d3? E.g. d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, bishop f4, c5, e3, knight c6, bishop g3. Just play 5, queen b6 and find the rest over the board, or are there more details to be considered? Yeah, that's pretty much where I stand. I think 5 bishop d3 is just bad, no? Queen b6 and you're already better with black. What else do you want from life? Many thanks, Rob. So bishop to d3 in this position, yeah? After e3, knight c6, bishop d3. That's just a bad move, because queen b6 is asking some very unpleasant questions. Seems like b3 is the best white has here. And now, once again, we have options. I'd probably go bishop to g4. I guess white should play c3. But now he's played b3, which really doesn't fit with the rest of his setup, because it leaves weaknesses around the dark squares on the queen side, especially c3. And we can probably already try to punish by going knight h5, but also just developing pieces e6 here. Black is slightly better. So bishop d3 is, well, it's not a blunder, but it's just a mistake if white gets this position. c3, queen b6 is, yeah, the main line, which is very comfortable for black. And knight bd2 is probably the most challenging move when I guess I gave some options in my video series as well. So no, bishop to d3 is absolutely nothing to worry about. It should be something that makes you happy. Queen b6 not the only good move here. c4 followed by knight h5, for example, also looks fine. No, bishop d3. It's just bad. Don't worry about it. All right. Let's do one more question. Then I'm bad at counting, but I think then we'll have had 10, which feels like a round number. Is it a round number? Anyway. Mr. Clesch, saying, hi Jan, is c4, c6, e4, e5, knight f3, queen a5 a serious alternative for a Slav player if he wants to avoid the Panov after c4, c6, e4, d5 with plenty of theory, or an old Indian. Thanks to Hamburg in advance. No, it's not a serious alternative. Don't do it. Play the Panov. Panov is not that scary. And we're done. Nah, I guess I should put it on the board. But generally, here's Jan's rule of thumb. Every opening that is based on the move 3 queen a5 is a bad opening for black. You heard me, Scandinavian players. I don't even understand the point, to be honest with you. Like, I understand, it covers the pawn and it pins the white deep pawn, but it just looks very bad. Like, the computer wants to do something aggressive, like bishop e2, knight f6, short castles, which probably in practice most people wouldn't do. Like, give this e pawn, knight takes e4, what does he do? d4, d6, and now either bishop to d3 or rook e1, even though I'm pretty sure the computer has a point, because it always has a point. And it does look very scary once the queen's out here. So that's maybe a computerish way to try to punish this queen to a5. Well, if after short castles you don't take the pawn, but you play whatever, d6, then there's even less reason for having put the queen out in the wilderness so early. White just goes knight c3, d4. When you have a really bad version of the, what's it called? Old Indian, with the queen already on a5. So, yeah, that's problems. And also if white just plays the normal moves, which I guess would be knight to c3, knight f6, now bishop e2, or the other way around, of course. I guess black's point is to play bishop to b4. Correct me if I'm wrong, maybe black's best hope here is to play something like d6 after castles, try to close the position. It'll only be somewhat worse because the queen is misplaced on a5, but not hopelessly. But yeah, it's all not very inspiring. But my guess is that the concept is to play bishop to b4 here. But once again, white just makes the most normal moves. Queen c2, not even going for direct castles. Castles, castles. I don't understand what black wants here. I think it's just worse. Rook e8, say a3. If you take, both recaptures seem to give white an edge, so probably you keep the bishop, but then d4. After d6, once again, it's just a bad version of whatever, old Indian, whatever we want to call it. It's some bad Indian, couple tempi down. So, I'm sure you can think of other moves here, knight a6 or whatnot, but none of those will change my mind unduly. No, I don't like it. Like, computer-wise, yeah, probably is bishop e2. Knight f6 short castle is the most challenging. But even normal development does strike me as better for white. And yeah, play the Panov, go d5. Well, takes. Or, well, if they go d4, knight f6, knight c3, knight c6, there's not that much theory to learn here. Bishop g5, you decide between e6 or dc4, both of those are fine. And knight f3, you decide between bishop g4 or g6. Bishop g4, sort of more established. I'm aware there's some theory, but it's a small price to pay for not having a horrible position after e5 followed by queen a5. Yeah, there's some sidelines, but none of those are very scary. Bishop b5 check. I think you go knight b7. Huh? How does this go? Knight c3, a6. Bishop e2, you go b5. Then knight b6. Is this the line? After queen a4, was it? You go rook b8, right? Knight c3 also exists, I guess. You take the pawn. Knight f3. And now there are many options. I like, what did I like? Knight c6, bishop b5, g6 I think I liked. Or was it knight c7 here? No, I think I want g6. Anyway. None of this stuff is all that scary, even though I understand it does carry a bit of a body of theory with it. But to my mind, yeah, it wouldn't be enough reason to just willingly play a bad position. Also a position that looks bad. Like, how can queen a5 be good? No, not a fan, sorry. Clesch. You should clesch in the center, not on the flanks. It's not a serious alternative, in my humble opinion. That was the humble season premiere of Jan's opening clinic. Where are we at? 21? Season 21. Thank you guys for watching. I hope we all learned something. And I'm looking forward to answering more questions. When will we launch these videos? I think every Thursday, 5 p.m. normally. See you guys there.